So today we're going to talk about rest day nutrition. This is so important. Taking rest days or recovery days is very important. So I want to talk about that and how we can maximize those days that we do have. If you guys don't know, my name is Lydia Nader. I'm a registered dietitian that has been practicing in the realm of performance nutrition for a little over 2 years now. I've been working with athletes from professional level all the way down to the weekend warriors and just anyone in between who has goals in order to achieve them and being active. So today we're going to talk about something that's very close to my heart, which is the recovery days or the rest day nutrition. So why is it important to take a rest day? It is so important to take a break for our bodies to learn how to adapt and to change. Food heals our body, and so that's why this topic of healthy food for a rest day is so important. It also provides us energy for our next workout because we usually only have one rest day sandwiched between two workout days. So being able to make sure you're refueled from the day previous, and then also fueling up for the next day is really important in these rest days. Rest or recovery days are so important. Without them, we can go into overtraining. We can increase our risk of injury in this time. A lot of times with overtraining, one of the symptoms is like we can work so hard, but we're not reaching our goals. And it can be very frustrating mentally as well. So there's definitely that mental aspect and emotional aspect that can come from not taking rest or recovery days as an athlete. So think about what your rest days look like. What day of the week is it? Is it typically a weekday? I know a lot of endurance athletes, the weekdays tend to have some sort of rest day. Maybe it's a Friday before a big workout on Saturday. Some people even take Sundays as their rest days. What does that look like? What do you incorporate into your rest days right now? Take a moment and kind of think about that. Okay. Now you've thought about what that looks like. Now we're going to dive into the nutrition portion of that rest day. Because you probably, when you were thinking about your rest day, you were probably thinking about maybe you foam roll, maybe you go to a yoga class, maybe you do Pilates, whatever that rest day looks like, you were probably thinking about the physical rest on that day. You maybe weren't necessarily first thinking about what your nutrition was going to be like or what your food intake looked like. That's not usually the first thing that comes to people's mind. But on a rest day, it's so important to think inward, outward. What we're consuming really can make the difference. And if you've attended any of my webinars or any of my educational sessions in the past, this plate looks very familiar to you. This is from the U.S. Olympic Training Center. They put this out there. It is for educational use, just like this. And this plate here specifically is focusing on easy training or rest days. As you can see here, this is broken down to show you how your plate should look for every meal. So this is not just one meal. This is every single meal that you should be focusing on. So here you can see the main part of the plate is vegetables and fruit. That is where we really want to focus on, and we'll dive deep into each portion of these plates for sure, but I want this visual to kind of stick in your brain for sure, because this is applicable. This is how our day-to-day looks like. So most of your plate, about 50% of your plate should be fruits and vegetables in whatever form that looks like. As you can see there's veggie soups, and with this cold weather, I know I have a soup on the docket to make today, so I don't know about you, but that's a great way to get some vegetables in, is making a soup. And then about 25% of your plate is going to be that lean proteins. Getting some good protein in there for recovery days is important. And then whole grains are definitely very important as well on these recovery days or rest days. So getting those certain foods in to make sure that you are fueling up your muscles. Also important is fats. Definitely want to make sure you're getting your fats, whether it be from avocados or oils, nuts and seeds, but you can also get them from some fish, so fatty fish like salmon, but you want to make sure that fat is still definitely a part of that meal balance. And then also beverages. You want to stay hydrated, so water is on the top of that list there. And then also having any dairy or non-dairy beverages, diluted juice during these rest days. Coffee and tea are definitely fine as long as it's not high in sugar. That's not necessarily what we're going for on these easy training days. And then any flavorings you want to use are right there. So this is a great visual to kind of go along and figure out what you are doing in this time. Okay. Foods to focus on. So as you saw on the plate, the foods to focus on are fruits and vegetables first and foremost. And the reason being they are packed with antioxidants and electrolytes and minerals. So with the antioxidants, this is something that is super important. We might see a lot of times as a buzzword, sometimes used in our media, but really what's behind it scientifically is these are trying to fight the oxidative stress, which is what we do as athletes. We put our bodies under oxidative stress, which is stress within our cells, within our muscles, and really going that microscopic to the cells. And so fruits and vegetables with the antioxidants fight the damage that oxidative state can do on our body, which is ultimately what causes a lot of soreness and things like that. So antioxidants are super important for us as we put our bodies through oxidative stress or stress every single day, unless it's a rest day. Rest days are when you are taking that time to allow our bodies to heal. But almost every day, especially as endurance athletes, and especially you triathletes out there, this is so important because you are really stressing your body out. So antioxidants are super important for that. Obviously, electrolytes to replenish whatever you have sweat out is super important. And then minerals such as iron and calcium and potassium and all of those different minerals. There's definitely a lot more in there. To be able to use those minerals in the different functions for our body as athletes is super important. So you want to make sure you're getting plenty of those minerals within your fruits and vegetables. As the minerals come from the ground, so things that grow from the ground are going to have those minerals. And then also they're just high in fiber and low in calories. So as the goals in rest day, our needs as a caloric intake are not as high as an athlete on a rest day. But we definitely want to make sure we're still staying satisfied. So high fiber can make sure that where our satiety is staying high. And that way as well that you are making sure you're getting plenty of those vitamins and minerals. And last but not least, you want to make sure you are eating the rainbow. And I use this a lot of times with younger students and things like that. But eating the rainbow is so important. You want a variety and you want to make sure it's definitely different ways of cooking it as well. So mix it up. Don't have the same vegetable every single day. Make sure you have a different color on your plate all the time. Secondly, foods to focus on, protein. Protein is so, so important. You want to repair the muscles with protein. It's so important for that repair, especially after we are tearing those muscle fibers apart in our workouts. For athletes, our goal is to get about 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. And you can see here an example of a female athlete who weighs 130 pounds, how to get that kilogram to figure out what her protein needs are. And you can see there her protein needs are from anywhere from that 88 to 118 grams. So it's definitely a pretty big range, but that might seem like a lot, and it's definitely a lot higher for us as athletes than the normal population, the average population. Whole grains, definitely important to stay focused on. These are carbs that fuel your body. They replenish our muscle storage, as so important for us as athletes. So you want to make sure that you are getting plenty of those whole grains. At 25% of your plate is a whole grain. And fiber is also a contributor within whole grains. It gets a lot of insoluble fiber, within your whole grains. And then you also get a lot of vitamin B, which is also important for a lot of functions within our bodies. Fats are also very important. They're essential for the absorption and utilization of vitamins D, K, A, and E. And those are all super, super crucial for us as athletes, especially pinpointing vitamin D and vitamin E. Those are very important vitamins for us, and so we want to make sure we're getting plenty of that in for our athletic performance. And it's also an insulator. In this cold, cold time of year for all of us, being insulated is super important. So we don't want to slack on the fat as athletes. Sometimes we are still fighting that notion that fat makes us fat, and that is not true. Fat is so important for us as athletes, and it ultimately creates an insulated layer and allows us to be able to train in these harsh conditions. I hope you're not necessarily training outside in these conditions, but a little bit warmer of these harsh conditions, and allows for our body to have some cushion to it as well when it comes to different organs. So it's very important for us as athletes. Now jumping into the very specific kinds of food. Specific kinds of food that have been proven in research to have a great effect on these recovery days. Tart cherries, you've probably seen it a lot, but tart cherries or tart cherry juice is a really important nutrient or food group that contains the nutrient antioxidants in order to decrease that recovery time. It decreases muscle breakdown as well for athletes, and can be incorporated into our everyday life through smoothies. And then also you can be a little creative. There's tons of tart cherry blogs out there and things like that. I know for myself, smoothies are the easiest way for me to incorporate that into my diet. And you don't need a lot of it. You know, it might be really expensive at the grocery store, but you really, if you look at the label on the back of it, you don't need a lot of it, because usually if it's 100% tart cherry, which I recommend grabbing that one and not any of the sweetened juices, when you grab it, you actually cut it with water. So you're not necessarily using the entire bottle, though it looks very expensive. So it can be really important for putting in your arsenal of recovery foods. Cinnamon, ginger, turmeric. Every single athlete out there should have these spices in their spice cabinet. If I walked into your kitchen right now, these three should be the core ones you have in your spice cabinet. Why is that? Well, cinnamon and ginger have been proven to show a decrease in inflammation, which we are always looking for as athletes, and also can allow for a lower rate of late onset muscle soreness. So you want to make sure that you are providing your body those nutrients, those spices that are really going to help that. Cinnamon is also great for controlling blood sugar. So a lot of times for us as athletes, especially endurance athletes, if you're like me, I like to work out in the morning. So sometimes my mornings are a lot more packed with whole grains, maybe some more carbohydrates, maybe a few more simple sugars, honestly. I like to make those pancakes and things like that. Maybe I'm getting a little bit more of that. Cinnamon allows to throw in there and allows to a steady stream of our blood sugar. So that way we can have a longer, we don't get that spike in the middle of the day or anything like that. So cinnamon is really important for that. Turmeric, the magic spice, as everyone is loving turmeric right now. You can decrease your chance of injury by increasing your turmeric. You can decrease your muscle soreness as well. It is just super, super important for anti-inflammatory properties that it has. You can add this to quinoa when you're cooking it. You can add it to smoothies. And there's some other dishes out there that incorporate turmeric, but definitely be careful. Don't just add a ton of it. I would start with a very small amount, about a teaspoon, because it is strong. I know for myself, I'm going to make a turmeric beef stew later today. It sounds amazing for a recovery day, and also for one of these cold days as well. Next, salmon. Salmon, super crucial. It contains lots of fatty acids, specifically omega-3s. And omega-3s are super important for us as athletes to get plenty of, because it helps decrease muscle soreness and is a huge, huge, huge decreaser of inflammation. It is so important to have plenty of salmon. I know the American Heart Association says we should have, 2 to 3 servings of fatty fish every week. I think if you can get more than that as an athlete, you're doing yourself a favor. So throw it on some salads, or throw it in the oven and bake it. Maybe throw it in some parchment paper to bake it up in the oven. I know if any of you follow me on Instagram, you know that I love my oven, and I love baking things, or roasting things, I should say. So sometimes I'll throw salmon with some parchment paper and throw some chopped up vegetables around it, roast those veggies and cook that salmon. And I've got a dinner ready to go in about 30 minutes. And that is super easy to do. Follow me on Instagram and you'll see all those fun little details. Next one is eggs. Eggs are super important because they contain an essential amino acid, lysine. Lysine is so important for us as athletes, as it has been shown as an amino acid that helps with muscle soreness. Literally, that one little amino acid is very important for muscle soreness, that it is literally called that muscle recovery amino acid. So you want to make sure that you're getting that lysine as well. There's also reduced delayed onset muscle soreness from this, similar to all the other nutrients and foods that we talked about before. Finally, we have dark leafy greens, so that we can kale and spinach. Once again, very high in antioxidants, and we talked about how antioxidants are super important for you for fighting off that oxidative state that goes throughout our cells as athletes. They also contain those vitamins K, A, and E, which is super important, and we want to make sure that we're getting plenty of that. And super easy to do this. Throw it in some salad. Throw some spinach in a smoothie. I would maybe not necessarily do that with kale. If you have some tricks for throwing kale into smoothies, please throw them out there because they can be, it's a lot more dense and a lot tougher when you throw it into a smoothie compared to its cousin, the spinach. So make sure you're getting that kale and that spinach in your daily intake. Nuts and seeds, another important way to get omega-3s, especially for your vegetarian or vegan athletes out there. It provides omega-3, that lysine amino acid, so that protein as well. So combining that fat and that protein, super important. Decreases inflammation, and it can be added onto pretty much any dish. I know for myself, I made some roasted Brussels sprouts and threw some pumpkin seeds on top. It's a nice little topper, and you can also have it as a snack as well throughout your day. And then beautiful thing about nuts and seeds, we don't need a lot of them in order to gain the benefits. So it's super great to have those on hand for a nice little snack. Other additional things to add on to a recovery day outside of our nutrition and outside of specific things we're intaking. Hydration, so important. If you joined me a few months ago, I talked an entire 20 minutes about how important hydration is. That is so crucial in recovery days. It keeps your muscles hydrated. It keeps your GI system functioning, especially when your fiber intake might be slightly higher on these recovery days. You want to make sure that your hydration levels are adequate. So best rule of thumb for us on a recovery day, so this is a day that we are not necessarily sweating any extra through activity, is 1 milliliter per 1 kilocalorie consumed. So if you consume 2,000 calories, you should have 2,000 milliliters, which is ultimately 2 liters of water. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb to keep in mind. Another one, stretch, mobility, foam rolling. All those could be ultimately separate, but those are super important add-ons for a recovery day or an easy day. They're key to keeping our bodies healing and healthy. Foam rolling especially breaks up any sore or tight muscles, and then you can use the nutrition you learned today to repair those muscles and making sure that you are maximizing those recovery days in order to jump back into your training cycle or your training schedule the next day. So if you have any lagging tightness or soreness, this is the day to really treat it as importantly as a training day. That's what we're getting at here, is it should be treated just as importantly. So you want to make sure you're getting your recovery on. If any of you are on social media, you've seen this hashtag rest day brags. We should be bragging about it. We should be talking about how awesome it is that we are getting our recovery on, because it's so important for us as athletes, and it can be fun. I mean, that hashtag has been really cool to see on social media, and we want to make sure we're doing that because we don't want to be stressing our bodies out. And I love to use this rubber band analogy. If you've ever had like an old rubber band that has been stretched out continuously, maybe it's just been stressed, over time it will snap. The same thing goes for our bodies. If we do not allow our bodies to recover, to come back together and heal up, then over time, as it stretches out, it will initially snap. And that can manifest itself as an athlete in overtraining symptoms, in not seeing the results we want to see on the course, on the field, in the game, whatever that looks like. So ultimately, we want to really pride ourselves in the recovery days that we're doing. We want to brag about the recovery days as much as we brag about our training days and the successful training days we have. So my question to you guys is, what is your favorite recovery food? What is the food that you love the most? I want to see from you guys what your favorite recovery food is. As you're thinking about that, my favorite recovery food is ultimately a salmon. I love to make dinner recovery foods, honestly, but like some salmon with some spinach, maybe a spinach salad on the side with a little bit of vitamin C on there to make sure I'm getting all that iron from the spinach. So that's one of my favorite meals on a recovery day. Think about how you can incorporate all the foods we talked about and how you can literally, of the 6 foods we talked about in specific recovery, those can all be incorporated into the 3 to 6 meals or snacks you have in one recovery day. Because I know a lot of us might not take more than one recovery day. Maybe we only take one recovery day in a week. So you can literally make, from those 6 foods, you can make all of your meals and snacks for one entire day, if not more than that, which will ultimately benefit you more. But think about that, what you can do. So thank you guys so much for attending. Please feel free to connect with me on social media. Connect with me on Facebook and Instagram. I love to see people's responses to things, and then I love to see like what you are sharing, what you are making, what foods are out there, your tips and tricks, because ultimately everyone has their own way of doing things and own way of figuring out what works best for them. So I want to make sure that you guys are really